Hello wonderful friends, it's Evelyn here. Welcome back to this, my very own little creative corner of the internet. Please, if you haven't done so already, hit that all important subscribe button for me. I don't know which side it's on. It's on one side, but please let me know that you've subscribed in the comments below so I know that you're there. Oh, such a beautiful day here in the Scottish Highlands, and I'm actually coming to you technically from the future because I deleted my original intro for this video. Very clever. So actually the creation I'm creating this week is literally just off the screen down there, but this week I'm going to create something I've wanted to create for a while. How rude. Thank you very much. It's a 1970s inspired floaty, gorgeously floral maxi dress. Yes, so without further ado, let's get to some past creating, talking about the intro now that's actually technically in the future because the creation is sat right there. Let's get to some sewing, my friends. The inspiration for today's featured creation are the maxi dress patterns of the 1970s, just like these ones here. Armed with this gorgeous inspiration, I grabbed my sketchbook and got sketching and came up with this. My version of this maxi dress is going to allow for more coverage on the back of the gown to make it more wearable for me, and I'm going to make those drapes removable and the straps convertible to a halter neck too, using buttons and buttonholes to make this dress super adaptable. A simple gathered skirt will complete the dress. And for the pattern, well, I knew that I had a bodice perfect for this design, so I headed to my patterns folder to grab the bodice pattern from this, my sweetheart dress. There's a card above to that project with full details on how to draft that pattern. I'll use that bodice pattern and simply skip the gathering detail at the centre front. Wonderful. And the fabric. I have the perfect fabric for this, a gorgeous floral print moroccan crepe from my friends at Minerva, and together with some white cotton lawn for lining, it's time to get to cutting out all of those pattern pieces. Right, after a morning of cutting out those bodice pieces, I've got all of them here, and what I've done is I've cut out 2 sets of lining pieces and 1 set of that gorgeous fabric. And the reason I've cut out 2 lining sets is because I've underlined the fashion fabric because it is lovely and drapey, so I need a little bit more stability for the bodice. So I've done that with all of my top pieces, and then I've made some simple straps which need to be turned in the correct way. And then for the skirt, my friends, I've literally just cut lengths of my fabric. Now this fabric is 60 inches wide, which is awesome because it's going to mean that creating a really gorgeous full gathered skirt is going to be really easy. So what I've done is I've taken my waist to floor length measurement, added 2 seam allowances, and then I've literally just cut a length of fabric that long. And I've done that twice, once for the front of the skirt and once for the back. And then the back piece, which is under this giant front piece, I've cut the back piece in half lengthways so that I've got 2 backs and 1 front. So the reason I've got 2 backs is to create a centre back seam where I will insert the zip, which will go in the top or the bodice part of the dress in the centre back as well. So this is looking like it's going to be a pretty quick make, and I love this fabric. How beautiful and bright, cheery and summery it is. And I haven't underlined the skirt because I really want to show off the drapey, gorgeous, fluid quality of this fabric. So, time to get some sewing done. As predicted, friends, this was a super quick sew, beginning with constructing that princess seam bodice and bodice lining. Before joining those two layers together all along the upper edge, sandwiching those straps between the layers at the front of the bodice, leaving them detached at the back to allow those straps to be convertible. Skirt rectangles sewn together, I then ran a long line of gathering stitches all along the waistline of the piece, pulling on the bobbin threads to tightly pack in the gathers before pinning that skirt to the outer bodice layer, stitching the bodice and skirt units together, leaving the lining layer free. Time for that zip, and then hand stitching that lining inside the bodice nice and neatly. Right, so next steps, and actually one of the final steps. So this is going to be creating the shoulder drapes for my dress, which is actually there on the back of the chair, almost finished. And the girls are fast asleep there too on the day bed. So these pieces of fabric on the floor here, my friends, are going to become those shoulder drapes, and what I've done to create those is literally take my shoulder to floor measurement, and then I've taken that along the length of the fabric, and then I've chopped that piece in half across the width of the fabric to get these two pieces here. Next, what I'm going to do is place both of those pieces singularly right sides together to make sort of fabric tubes, which I'll turn out the right way before hemming them. Then the top edge, I will run a gathering stitch and pull those gathers as tight as possible, as tightly as I can, to create that shoulder drape. And then what I'll do, my friends, is finish the top edge. I'm not too sure how to do that yet, but then when that's finished, I'll add a button which can then attach to the strap at the shoulder with a buttonhole. So let's see if this is going to work. I hope that made sense. Having created those drape pieces, my friends, and put the dress on my faithful Betty and pinned, hello Lyra, and pinned those drapes approximately where they will be on the shoulders, this is what the dress is looking like. I love it. Absolutely love it. I'm actually also quite proud of myself for the placement of the flowers, because there's no dodgily placed flowers, which is quite difficult with this fabric because it's covered in flowers. So this is what the drape pieces look like, and I think they're large enough to make an impact, but not big enough that it's taken a ton of fabric and that they're going to sort of override the dress. So love it. I think as well that's the perfect amount of gathers for this sort of maxi length skirt as well. Really, really liking this. So the next thing I've got to do, my friends, is try this baby on and pin on myself, because I think Betty is slightly shorter in the torso than I am. I've got quite a long torso and quite short legs. So put it on myself and then work out with pins where I want to place those. And then what I'm going to do is sew 2 buttonholes on the strap, one for the front of the drape, one for the back of the drape. And then I'm going to finish this by binding it with some of the fabric, and then obviously the same on the other side. And then I'm going to do some buttonholes on the straps at the back as well, so that if I want to have a crossover back I can. And then I'll put some buttons in the back of the dress, I've got some really cute little heart buttons. I think I've used them on the channel before actually to do that with. So another thing that's really great about these drapes is that they can also double up as waist ties and hair ties when I don't want them on the dress. Lyra. So yeah, nearly finished, my friends. I love this fabric, it's just gorgeous. And creating those little binding style casings for the top of the shoulder drapes was my next task. After sewing the buttonholes where they needed to go after the fitting session, and then sewing the buttons and that little bias binding onto the end of the gathered sashes, this is what it looks like. Just that little bit on the shoulder there. Full disclosure, my friends, these buttonholes are an absolute state. I made them too small, so I then had to hand stitch them. And yeah, they're just a bit of a mess. So then my brain said to me, why didn't you just use poppers on the underside of the strap? So at some point I'm definitely going to take the strap off of this dress and then add a new strap. But yeah, it's looking pretty good. Luna and Lyra are playing in the other room. So yeah, there are things that I would change, but the buttons look really cute on it, so I'm not super mad. But yeah, poppers would have been a much better idea. So, or even Velcro maybe. And you know, if you've been here on the channel for any length of time, you'll know how much I love hook and loop tape, so that would have been a logical thing as well, apart from the fact that it would have touched the skin. So yeah, do you know what, the best made plans. But yes, so this dress has to be hemmed and then it will be reveal time, my friends. Wow, my friends, I love this dress and I'm really proud of how it turned out. Full disclosure though, the buttonholes on the straps are a bit of a mess. And I also fudged up their positioning where they're supposed to meet the buttons on the back of the bodice. They're in completely the wrong place on those straps and I have no idea how that happened. And I also put the buttons too close to the centre back. And here is the lesson, friends. Always make a mock-up, which I didn't do with this creation. And you know, making one would probably have prevented that foible. But worst case scenario here, I'll just stick some more actual decently sewn buttonholes onto that strap and change the button placement. There have been much worse sewing disasters, my friends. Wow, friends, what a successful week of sewing. I love this dress. It's not often that I say this, but I'm really proud of what I've created recently here on the channel, and this dress, it just, sometimes there's projects that you envisage in your head and they end up coming out even better than you thought they would, and this is one of them. So it seems like taking a little bit more time with my creations is actually working. So yes, feeling pretty happy with myself this time here on the channel, my friends. So here's to many more. Take care, my wonderful friends. Remember to hit subscribe if you haven't done so already, and I'll see you again for some more vintage inspired creating very, very soon. Bye. Oh, you're looking really hot, Betty. You wear that dress.